Hey everybody, just got, I'm going to give a few extra minutes for people to join in here. But if you guys want to go ahead and start asking me some questions down in the chat, please feel free to drop them in. I know it's been a while since I've been online. You guys noticed probably that I've had a couple of videos posted recently. I've been really busy with the work that I do over at WazU, so I haven't really had a chance to do much in the way of building content for my channel, and I really have kind of felt bad for not having, not having too many people or not having enough videos on for you guys. So I'm hoping to get started on some of that stuff again. Really kind of sucks that had to take some time away. Hey, we're getting our stuff first. Comments here, awesome. DC, hello, how's it going? Fazzy, is there Fazzle? Fazzle Rabbi. I'm doing good, sir. Or ma'am. I'm not really sure. Fazzle, it's an interesting name. Okay, thank you, DC, for posting that. I will, I definitely want to give a little bit more time here. I'm going to start up at about 6 o'clock before I start answering questions, so just keep loading up the channel with it, and I will be happy to get to it. So the idea here is I'm going to start trying to do a bit more of these things, these little Ask Me Anything live impromptu sessions, so you guys can start asking me questions about anything, and I will be happy to start answering them. I do have some news articles and stuff that I also will probably start out my streams with to kind of give some time for people to come on and start asking questions and stuff. So just a few seconds left here, and if you guys want to, again, throughout this time, if you just want to drop those questions in the chat, feel free to drop them in there, and you know, the ones that I hopefully I can get to all of them. I can't guarantee it. Hopefully I can. I know we're going to get a lot of we're probably going to get a lot of viewers hopefully tonight, so I won't necessarily be able to get to every question. Maybe, I don't know, depends. I'm nervous. Oh my gosh, I'm nervous. I haven't done one of these in a while. You guys wonder what the heck's happening to me, huh? Like, this has been a long time since I've been doing any stuff. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And I just want to open up by first saying thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you guys coming on here and taking the time. It's 6 o'clock p.m. on a Saturday. Like, you could be doing anything else with your time. So wanting to come here and chat with me and ask me stuff about programming is really cool. Obviously, I always say this in all of my my opinion video stuff. You know, I'm open to answering any questions for anything. I'm really pretty open guy. I probably and a little bit of walking a fine line in the politics of today. You know, you can easily get fired if you say something wrong. It's forever and goes on Twitterverse, and you know, next thing you know, you get your pink slip. So I try to avoid that little pitfall as much as I can. But if you guys have any questions for me, I'm a pretty open book. I'm pretty honest about things, and so I'll be more than happy to answer anything you guys want to ask me. I do want to get started first today, before I jump into your guys' questions, and I will get to them very soon, I promise. I do want to kind of go over a couple of news articles that just kind of popped up on my radar. The first one here is from Tech Republic. 10 questions software developers should expect in a job interview. This is a really good thing to go through. I try to direct students. So many of you guys may not know that I am now a full-time, well, I was an instructor for WazU, and this is not going to be a plug for WazU at all, but I was an instructor for WazU. Now I am the subject matter expert at WazU, so I manage essentially all of the curriculum that they do for the full stack web division. I have several of, I basically am doing videos for them too, so you guys like all the videos I've done, and they've seen that, so they wanted a bunch of those done. So I've been doing videos on everything from HTML, CSS, and JavaScript basics to React and Angular and C# and Java, and I'm having to start to dig into the Ruby stuff now. So there's the gambit of things that I have to go through, and put the material for. So you guys really have kind of this free access to ask me stuff that honestly several students would probably love to be able to get a hold of me, and I answer those questions all the time, but this is kind of your guys's kind of a little bit of time to ask me those same kind of questions that those that those students would also have. So software developers are in high demand. Oh boy, is that ever the case. Here are some tips on how to answer the common developer interview questions. I'm not going to go through and read all of this. I'm just kind of wanting to point out this is a good article for you to go through and definitely go up and read through. So if you're looking at that, I will go ahead and make this post once this video goes into, into the history and it's recorded. I'm going to go ahead and send links, put links in the description for each one of these in the video so that you guys can go back and review them. But yeah, you're going to get questions like this. What kind of development are you currently doing? And this is really the one thing that popped out on me when I started reading through this was one of the criticisms that I've heard about students that go through our program and other developers in general is that they'll work on something, they'll work on a project, get through it, and then they just kind of stop. And know that you should be posting your commits to GitHub. You should be constantly doing stuff up on GitHub, and then you build up a profile on GitHub that you can see a chart of like all the work that you've done. So in fact, I can probably show you guys this. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my GitHub profile, and I'm just gonna show you guys like what my profile looks like. And you guys are always welcome to come and take a look at this too. But this is my profile here. And if you look, you can see like all of these commits, all these contributions that I do, over 1,000 of them in the last year, and it's probably even going to be more than that over the next 6 months probably. But this is the kind of thing that you really should try to focus on doing for yourselves, because this is the type of stuff that an employer is going to look at your GitHub profile and they're going to see this and they're going to be like, wow, this is really good stuff. Looks like, am I live? Can you guys, my video is bad or something. Interesting. Why is my video bad? Can you guys see my video? I just want to, if you guys can see my video, just drop it in the chat. Let me know that you guys can see it, because according to my preview screen here, it doesn't look like, all you see is just me with the Microsoft screen. So please let me know. And there's a little bit of a delay from what I'm asking. Interesting. I'm not sure what's going on there. Okay, you guys can see it? Yes, okay, yes I am. Okay, good. Must just be something going on with the preview screen. Okay, good. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'll just use the, let me pop this out. Well, I'll leave that alone for now. Okay, so you guys can definitely see, like, this is, these contributions that I'm doing is really, really important. Because when a potential employer is going to go look at your profile, they're going to see this kind of action. And if they see just completely blank, they're going to go, well, you're not really much of a developer, are you? Like, and you need to develop this public profile in order to get hired. You really need to, develop that public profile that's, because employers are going to be looking at everything from like Facebook to Twitter, to GitHub. Hopefully they pay more attention to GitHub than your Facebook profile. But these are the type of things that employers are starting to consider themselves, to consider now when they try to figure out who to hire. So it's really, really important. If you go back to like my 2013, there's nothing going on there, right? And if that's what they see, they're going to be a little bit concerned. There's a lot going on there for 2016. Anyway, okay, so I just wanted to highlight that 10 questions for software developers, interview questions, and you definitely want to go through those. The next one that I wanted to talk about here was software development isn't a manufacturing process. So a lot of you guys may not know this, but Agile is definitely a software like Agile itself is more of an agile construct, but it actually takes roots all the way back to like lean manufacturing. And this is something that Toyota came up with a long time ago. It's kind of where the origins of streamlining the process comes from. And so there's a lot of crossover between manufacturing and software development, and there's a lot of lessons that have been learned through that time. So it's a good read. It's definitely a good read. I definitely encourage it. The next one is just some different best websites to go learn software for free. And this is good. I always like to kind of see what some of the latest trends are in where you can go do some free learning. Obviously, programmingmadeeasy.com is a great one to go to. I wish I was on this list, but in lieu of that, they have some good ones here. Code Academy, Tutorials Point, W3 Schools is really a good go-to place. I go to W3 Schools. I direct some of my students there sometimes, so it's just it's good stuff. Geeks for Geeks, Study Tonight, and Stack Overflow. I don't know that there's like, it's not a tutorial place, but it is a great place to go ask your questions, right? That's really what Stack Overflow. I think it's funny because with my students, I'm constantly telling them, you can come ask me questions, but the bottom line is you should be trying to figure out ways to go ask yourself these questions, right? Go find the answers on your own, because in the development world, that's all you do. The development world is all about you being able to go solve problems. And if you have to ask your boss to help you out with that all the time, they're going to start wondering why they hired you. So this is a good thing to get comfortable with, going to Stack Overflow, asking questions. And you have to start building a profile in there. You have to start asking and answering enough questions, and doing some comments to get enough credits before you can start really getting involved. And the sooner you go to Stack Overflow and start doing those things, the sooner you're going to be able to be more effective on Stack Overflow. And so I really encourage you to go do that as soon as you can. Okay. Next one. Microsoft is taking a slow and steady approach toward integrating GitHub job listings suggest. So this is, there was a big announcement a long time ago, I guess a long time ago, what was it, maybe 6 months ago, that Microsoft was acquiring GitHub, and the open source community instantaneously freaked out. Like, what is Microsoft going to do? Are they going to turn it into a profit center? Are they going to keep it free? There was all sorts of things. And what's really kind of funny is almost as soon as Microsoft gained that influence, GitHub, as soon as January rolled around, one of the first things that Microsoft actually did with GitHub was make all of the private repositories free as well as the public ones. So for those of you who don't know about GitHub, it's a repository place where you store your code, you work with other people. It's what we call a central repository, where you post all your code up to, and you can kind of share it with other people and manage your applications that way. And for the longest time, the model with GitHub was you pay like $7 or $9 a month, and you can have unlimited private repositories. But you could also have the free one, where you just post public applications, right? Your repositories are free to the public. Now, the public couldn't necessarily make changes to your code, but they could all see it, right? And that was kind of the model that they were going for. If you wanted free repositories, you would have to pay for it, but the public ones were always free. Well, Microsoft has now made all private and public repositories free. So that's kind of an interesting thing, and this is really kind of following along with what I think Microsoft's strategy is right now in trying to be more developer friendly. I think the light bulb has really gone on under this gentleman here, right? Satya Nadella, or Nadella, sorry, I said Nadella. Satya has been really good and influential on Microsoft, making them much more cross-platform, open source. Heck, they just released Microsoft Calculator as open source, so that's pretty crazy. They just, made it available. So anyway, they are kind of slow playing any sort of changes to GitHub. I think this is good news. I think there will be some pretty great things that they do with it, but the first step by making private repositories free is just, I think, a symbol of the direction that they're trying to go with Microsoft. They're not going to restrict things anymore. They're going to make it better. Okay. Last one here, and then I'm going to start getting into your guys' questions, all right? So speaking of GitHub, they have added drafts for pull requests. So for those of you who don't know what a pull request is on GitHub, it's a way of someone else, basically who's not necessarily a collaborator, not a direct collaborator on your repository, to suggest changes to your repository. So they've made it so that now, essentially, before you just go and accept a change from some outside person, you can actually have like this discussion going on. So, all right, that should do it for all of those. I hope that you guys found some of those things interesting, and I probably will do that whenever I do some of these little chats like that. So let me go ahead and start out here with some of your guys' questions. DC says hello. I really appreciate that. Hello, everybody. Fazil says hi. How are you? Well, that's a great first question. I am doing very fine. I'm getting over a cold. You guys might have noticed. My poor wife is actually working right now with her cold. So yeah, we're trying to get over that. It's been kind of going through. I work from home exclusively now, so I'm kind of all alone. I don't have an office that I go to other than my small commute from my bedroom to my office. And it's great. It's an awesome lifestyle. It's one of the reasons why I think developers, it's one of the reasons I think people should become developers, is because you can start to have this kind of lifestyle. You can just, in your own home, set up an office, and in America, having your own home office is tax deductible, which is awesome. So what do you consider, so DC asks, what do you consider the easiest programming language to learn? The easiest programming language to learn. It kind of depends. As far as ease, I think the easiest one, and this isn't really a programming language, but I think it's one that starts to get you at least thinking about certain things. I actually like SQL as a good introductory language. Even though it's not a programming language per se, and I'll get to a different one in just a moment. But the reason why I think SQL is a good language to start with is just simply because the whole purpose behind programs is really data, right? It's like the root of everything starts and ends with manipulation of the data. Even video games, really, from the perspective of the development side, you have to figure out how to manage the data itself. Yes, you could do some cool things. You could do like Flappy Bird or something like that, some really simple game that doesn't seem to have any real, real reason to store data. But even then, you have to have some sort of data management because you've got a score, right? You got to have some sort of score. And you probably want to have track of users. You want to start tracking, who gets the highest score, who gets the most levels. That sort of thing is actually data-centric, even if you're going to just do a video game. But not only that, I think it just starts to get you to think about data types. It starts to get you to think about how to organize data, how to organize just your thoughts and categorize things. And once you start to understand how to sculpt the data, you're also really starting to talk about sculpting classes, right? Like, how do I start to put things into logical units? And once you start thinking about logical units and normalizing tables and stuff, you're really talking about how do you build classes? How do you build structures that contain this information and kind of organize things a little bit better? So in that way, I think SQL is a great way to start, though obviously that's not really going to get you very fast from point A to point B. But it is a very easy language to learn, right? It's a very easy thing to start to learn. But I think your question is more or less like an actual programming language. So C#, Python, Ruby, JavaScript, Java. Which one of those languages do I think is the easiest? I would have to say probably the easiest entry-level language is probably Python. I don't necessarily like Python as an introductory, but I'm just trying to answer your question more directly as far as ease. Is it easy to learn? That would be Python. What is the best language to learn? I have, for a long time, contended C Sharp. I think C Sharp is the one that opens up the most doors to all of the other languages, right? If you know C Sharp, you know Java, you've pretty much got a good grasp that would get you into JavaScript. And there's an argument to be had that, you know, if you learn Java, well, you're just as well off as you would be in C Sharp, especially because they're really, really close to each other. But I think C Sharp is just a little bit more open. They are quicker to assimilate outside concepts into the C Sharp language. And so if you have a really, really good firm grasp of C Sharp, you can translate those concepts that you've learned in C Sharp to those other languages very, very easily. So yeah, the nice thing about Java as a good starting language is that it's just everywhere, and you can, I mean, Java is probably the hottest job market ready language to learn. Like if you know Java, you can start to think about, you know, getting a job doing Android applications for phones, or, you know, enterprise level applications. It's a very ubiquitous language. There's a lot of demand for Java. And if you learn C Sharp first, this leap over to Java is very easy. Okay. Nicolas says hi. Hi, Nicolas. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it. Ben Jamel says, hello, Master. Forgot to thank you for a response of one of my questions. So thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate your questions, Ben. And again, you know, I tried to do those in my opinion videos. They didn't really seem to be as hot as I would have liked them to be, but I'm still going to continue to do videos like I did the one recently with React and Angular. So I hope that you guys can still continue to send me those questions for those in my opinion videos. I really like doing them. I wish I could think of a better structure for them. It seems like, you know, I'm just rambling on this video right now. I pretty much just ramble on those. So maybe I need to reconsider the format a little bit. But yeah, please keep sending me those questions. I really, they help me to build content, right? They help me to come up with reasons to do videos. All right, next one. Oops, I scrolled down a little too fast. Coal City Like. Coal City Like. Okay, he says, I just want to thank you for making that ASP.NET Core tutorial, even though some things have changed, but thank you. Yeah, they've really, like, it's really old, right? It's from 1.0. Heck, it was, you know, release candidate 1 or 2 that I was working on back in the day. And now they're already just about, I think you're about to release 3.0. I haven't been able to stay up on top of the .NET Core stuff as much as I wish I could, because I've got, you know, all these other languages that I manage for work. But yeah, it's like, I'm glad that I did it too, and I do want to get back into some of the ASP.NET Core stuff. It's hard to build a series like that, and I started the Access 2016 series again, and I kind of had to decide, you know, which one was I going to do. And looking on the balance of it, it was like, well, the majority of my views come from Access. So when I'm thinking about how to build a channel, I have to consider which one should I do. Access just seemed like the best way to go. Doing 2016, it's really kind of the same content as 2013, but I figured I'm a bit more mature in my presentation. I know a little bit more about just coding and software development in general than when I was doing that 2013 series. So I thought I could be a little bit better at it this time around. It's unfortunate that it's just taking me so long to go through and do it. Okay, so now we have Center Negative. Same old question. Your thoughts and feelings on the future of Access versus, say, Excel, Power, or View Query. Yeah, so it's funny because every time they've been thinking that Access is going to be gone for I think the last version that anybody thought was never going to go away was Access 97. Ever since then, it's been like, when is Access going to go away? And yet here it is, right? It's still going on. It's still a thing. It's still really the only solution for that particular niche. Um, Access being that power user, and the simplicity and the ease of which to use it, and the versatility of Access really kind of makes it that go-to, that go-to tool for any, like a C-level executive or manager or somebody who has to just work with data on a regular basis and figure out reports and see what's going on. Boy, the ease of access to your data through Access is just it's second to none. There just isn't anything else like it. I don't know enough about Excel Power View or Excel Power, and I think you're talking about the product that's on Office 365 now. And I just don't like they keep trying to come out with these options that are more online. And I think at some point, Microsoft is, if they're going to really try to get people off of Access, they're just going to have to shut it down, right? There's really no way to get people off of it by offering a better product, because every product they seem to come out with is just not as good at doing things as Access is. So I don't know that necessarily, and I don't think that that's the right strategy either. I think if you have a product that people are still continuing to cling to, that says something about the community. Maybe you should try to actually, work with them and do actual proper development on the product instead of just repackaging the same thing over and over again like they've been doing since 2007. Because really, I mean, there haven't been any major advancements in Access since the conversion from 2003 to 2007. And that more or less just came about because they needed to come up with a 64-bit version. Since everybody's computer was going to 64-bit, they were kind of forced into doing it. Now their business model is not desktop-oriented anymore. Their business model is cloud-oriented. So they're trying to push a product now up in the cloud that's going to solve all the same problems that Access did. But the problem is people still have their data on their servers. People still have the data sitting around on a SQL server, right? Or a MySQL database or Oracle database. Is Excel Power going to be able to do that and work with that? I don't think so. I just don't think it's going to happen. All right. Cole City Like, what is your suggestion on how to read .NET Core documentation for a newbie? Yeah, don't. You really have to go. So if you're talking about like the TechNet articles and stuff like that, just forget it. It's not going to get you anywhere. I wanted to bring up. Let's go ahead and take a look at. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here for like Microsoft Tech, right? So Microsoft. Yeah, let's do. I forget exactly what the URL. Yeah, docs.microsoft.com, right? So this place here. It's a pretty big labyrinth of information, isn't it? So if you're just a .NET developer, I think the first thing you should probably do is just go to the .NET site. So if you go to .NET, right, and you go get yourself the .NET Core platform stuff, but they also have the docs section here. And this docs section is pretty good about breaking everything down. And they have a lot of guides, right? They have a lot of getting started guides. They have a lot of good documentation as far as how to utilize the technology rather than just this is what it is, right? I hate those, where if you press F1 on a class or something like that and you try to go seek help and it takes you to like this article that's just like, this is what the class is and here's all the properties and functions. It just is so bereft of any real actionable intelligence that it just doesn't make sense to really even go there for anything. But if you do come here, like the C# guide is really good. So if you're just starting out in C#, getting started, a tour of C#, what's new in C# probably isn't so good for you unless you're trying to skip versions, right? You're trying to go from something earlier to something later. Here's a C# language reference. This is a pretty good one. So here's some keywords, operators. This is just kind of a good breakdown also of the different concepts that are in C Sharp. Like once you understand concepts, and this is one of the wonderful things that I was talking about the C Sharp language, is it's so inclusive of so many different concepts, right? That if you just start getting that, you start digging into operators, for example. You know, what are the C Sharp operators? The equal sign, not equal sign, less than, greater than. Like these are all universal concepts, right? Every programming language has this in it. So, you know, that's really, really good. You can do, you can override operators. You could do, here's a postfix increment, postfix decrement, unary operators. Let's see if they've got ternary operators. Anyway, okay, so logical XOR, that's a good one. That's, you guys should go check that one out if you don't know what the logical XOR operator is. It's kind of an interesting one. But yeah, just like the breakdown of the documentation. So equality operators, right? So here's just a little brief description, but you can click on the link and this will take you into like an actual code example that just really goes through and does it. So this documents, right, that you can, if you just go to .net, right? So let me just start this over again. So we go to .net, go to the docs. This is going to go to the .net version of the docs, okay? And then from here, you're going to want to go to, like, this is okay. The .net guide is okay. The .net core guide is okay. But if you're really just getting your feet wet with C Sharp, go through the guide. Once you're done with that, then go ahead and go into the .net guide, okay? .net architectural concepts. This is good stuff. But it's really much more in-depth. And it's going to, I don't know that for a beginner just starting out that this is necessarily going to help you out, but it's kind of good to go through some of this and try to understand the overall architecture and concepts that they're trying to get at with .NET. So hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't. If you need me to expand upon that, I will certainly do that. Let's see. Ben Jamel, exclamation point. Awesome. You guys were talking about my video, yeah, when I was asking about whether or not you guys could see. All right, Dwayne Colson? Yeah, Dwayne Colson. In Access Payroll Tracking Promotion Salary and Demotion Salary, I was able to use max function to identify promos. In Access Payroll Tracking, I'm trying to understand what your question is. Oh, but need to know how to ID a date in the middle of initial hitting date and latest promotion date. I'm not really sure how to answer that, Dwayne. I'm not really sure what the question is. In Access Payroll Tracking Promotion Salary and Demotion Salary, I was able to use max function to identify promos. So the max function is going to give you the highest number, right, within a column. But need to know how to ID a date in the middle of initial hitting date and latest promotion date. So max date, so if you max the date, that's going to be the latest date within the table, right? So whatever the last date was of the data that's in the table, the max function will get you that date. So if you're trying to get, you want to ID a date. Do you mean ID? And I just need some clarification here, Dwayne. When you say ID, that means something to me as a developer, right? The actual term ID might mean something different than how you're conceiving it. So ID is specifically the primary key of a table. In my brain, that's what it means, is the primary key of the table. So when I see ID a date, do you mean you're looking for the ID of a record in the database based upon the date? Or are you talking about you're looking for a date, right? So some people would say ID is short for identify. So are you trying to identify a date, or are you trying to find the ID of a record that has a date in it? So if you could just clarify that for me, that would be really helpful. If hopefully you're still on. Okay. Please be online regular, sir, at least in a week. I might do that. I've been thinking about this. So I'm one of those silly people that watch Twitch TV on occasion, and I watch people play video games just for the heck of it. But I'm really picky about who I watch, and I do not watch PewDiePie. I do not watch that guy. He's so irritating to me. But there is a guy that I watch, and I'm just going to do a little plug here for this guy. His name is Choco Taco. CHOCOTACO. So Choco Taco. And he's just the most laid back and relaxed guy. I love watching him. I love to he's just so, and if you think about the typical gamer that you would encounter online, the, ragers, he is the exact opposite of that. He's got this music playing in the background that's really nice and relaxed, and you can just put him on the video screen in the background while you go do work, right? He's just really good. And he is really skilled at his at games too. So he's worth a watch. He's worth a watch. If you don't like him, you don't like him, But the thing that he said, though, so going back to this point, the thing that he said, and he gets asked all the time, like he's got thousands of subscribers, right, that subscribe to his channel. And one of the things that people always ask him is, how do you build a successful channel? And the thing that he always tells everybody is be consistent. Do the same thing over and over. Because if you're predictable, then people will start to cling on to that predictability. So I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about building a schedule for myself where I come online and I start answering questions like this. It's a little harder for me to do. I was hoping to schedule like videos, like to actually do videos and post them up on YouTube and stuff, but that takes a little bit more to do. It takes a lot more time to put something like that together than something like an AMA. So for me, I might do something like this every week or perhaps once a month. I'm not really sure what the time frame is, but I do think that it would be good to do something like this. I do obviously have to work it around my regular my regular 40-hour a week work schedule, and you never know when work might interfere with some of that stuff that you might plan. So let's go ahead and close that down. I don't need that open anymore. All right, let's put this little baby back up. There we go. Okay, so next question. I can understand your English 90 to 90%. It's okay, thanks, sir. Oh. Yes. My English, I'm not egotistical about this, but I know that I use slightly more articulate language, and I go probably a little too fast. I say things a lot quicker. My brain is constantly churning. But sometimes I use vocabulary that not everybody's accustomed to hearing, and I imagine for someone who English is not their first language, might hear certain words that they need clarification for. And if I say something, if I say a word or I have a concept that I say and you need me to re-articulate it, by all means, hit me up with that. Let me know, and I will be happy to explain it, because I am an educator at heart. I love to teach people. So if I can help clarify a concept or clarify something for you, by all means, hit me up with that. With regards to, so this one comes from Center Negative. With regards to telecommuting without visas toward your particular situation, do you think it's better not going to an office and collaborating as a team or department or company every day? Or have you just supplanted all that interaction with Skype, Slack, or equivalents? Okay, this is an excellent question. These are the kind of questions I love. So way to go, Center Negative. That is an excellent question. I have been having this ongoing discussion actually at work about this very thing. Our company, and I'm not giving anything away, I'm not giving any trade secrets away here, but our company is becoming more virtual. We have more people working from home than we used to, and so our central office is kind of broken out, and now everybody just works from home, and this is fantastic for a lot of the people, right? Even people who were going there to go to work at the office are now working from home, and they love it, and I love it. I started out going, so I moved I guess you guys don't really know the whole story here. What's happened to me? So maybe I can just kind of back up a little bit on that, and then I will definitely address this question. So at the time, I was working. So the last time you guys really knew about me, I was working down in Phoenix for a company called Gartman Technical Services, and I was starting to head up their software development division, and I was getting heavy into the .NET Core, ASP.NET stuff, and really starting to build applications from there. And I started out with them as an Access developer. Going back several years before that, by the way, the first language I actually learned to use was JavaScript back in 1995 when it came out. I still have like a big thick binder of tutorials of how to use JavaScript. So really my background goes all the way back to JavaScript, and I've been developing since I was a teenager. But for Garmin, I was doing mostly Access database work as well as .NET Core stuff, right? And with that came some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript stuff that had to be done. So anyway, that job was great. I love my boss. Like Todd, who still runs that company, is one of the best managers I have ever had, and I try to model my management style around him, around what he did, because he is just such an incredible guy that I just have to try to do. I want to emulate that. So anyway, I ended up getting a job working for a company called Coder Camps. Now, Coder Camps was a typical, pretty prototypical boot camp. They had an online catalog of courses, but they also had your on-site, they were doing classes on-site. And these classes were about 12 weeks long. So it was really kind of taking this material and condensing it down. You're sitting there at a desk for 8 hours a day, plowing through the material, occasionally doing some work with your groups, or having some homework assignments, that sort of thing. And then at the end, they would go and do, some sort of project building. Well, that company actually turned into what is now WazU. Sorry, I'm still getting a little over my cold. So that company is now WazU, which WazU sorry. WazU is now Steve Wozniak. So Steve Wozniak was the guy, along with Steve Jobs, who created and founded Apple. Oh, sorry guys. Wow. That's I'm sure you guys love coming to the stream and seeing that. Okay. So Steve Wozniak, they pitched the company to Steve Wozniak to be basically what we were doing, but do it a little bit more disruptively, right? So what we do, and this is not a pitch for WazU at all. I'm not saying you guys should come and do WazU. This is not a promotional video. I just want to explain to you guys what we do. So now we basically have this online repository again of all of these courses. We're kind of getting more online centric, but I was doing this on the ground teaching, and they wanted me to do it up in Redmond, Washington. So I asked my wife, and with her approval, because you got to get the wife's approval before you move, we went up to Redmond, Washington, which is, I was literally like 2 blocks away from Microsoft HQ. Like I could just walk down to their headquarters if I wanted to. And that was a really tremendously wonderful experience. I absolutely loved working up there. I loved that interaction that I had with students directly, and being just kind of up front and center. I think that some of the things that I did was wrong as far as the way that I taught. I wish that I had learned something from it. I learned from that experience how to communicate and how to teach a little bit more. And I feel bad for some of the students that went through that program, but also I think that I did a lot of good. But it definitely was a good growth experience. Now, that campus had to shut down, and the reason it shut down was not because we were unsuccessful, but rather because the agency, the owners of the building wanted us to sign a 7-year lease. And 7-year leases are just that's practically unheard of for just having a small little company out of a small little mall, basically. So that was a non-starter for us. We had to shut down that campus. But what that did was it transitioned me from being on the ground as a ground instructor to being online. And this is kind of a good format for me because I have my YouTube channel and I love talking to you guys online. So being an online instructor made a lot of sense. It was a great fit, but also that meant I can go wherever I want. And this is where we're starting to get around to your question here, Center Negative. So I know this is a bit of a roundabout way to get to it, but I think it's good to understand some of the context. So I went from that ground campus experience to being an online instructor, and I started to see some needs as far as the curriculum went, and I thought, we could start adding video content to this. This is what I'm really good at, so I kind of pitched it. We temporarily put some of the videos I made in one of our courses. The course just skyrocketed. People loved the videos, so now it kind of became a full-time thing for me. So now that's basically what I do. Is I do just like how I make the videos for Programming Made Easy, I make the same kind of videos for WazU. So not only am I in charge of the content that actually is the written content, but I also do the video content as well. And I love it. I absolutely, it's a dream come true. I got to tell you that, like, this job teaching people is just absolutely awesome. So now that I'm in this online only role, right? I'm only doing software development. Or I'm only doing the work from home, right? I'm not really present with anybody, and this has been a company-wide challenge. And it's always a company-wide challenge to businesses that suddenly make this decision that we're going to go to a remote only, or we're going to start employing people remotely. And so the challenge is, how does a company that has, for the longest time, and understand, like, the background of the folks that I work with is university, right? They almost all exclusively have this university background. So they're used to having a campus where everybody interacts directly. And now they're trying to move away from that to go into the remote, the remote employment. And it saves, like, it costs everybody so much money or it saves everybody so much money to do this, right? It costs everybody to have this office that everybody's in. But if you do this and you break everybody out they can work from home and they work collaboratively remotely, well, then everybody feels better because they're working from home. They can kind of take care of the stuff that's going on. I can drop my wife off to work and pick her up when she needs to be picked up. And it's not a real hassle. It's not a real problem. And my commute to work is like, I walk from my bedroom to the office. I think I'm happier working from home. But there is definitely a danger of being distracted. And this is something that I experience with a lot of my students because they're online, right? They're remote students. The number one problem that can happen is the distractions, right? You get the FedEx guy comes and knocks on your door. You've got, your wife or your kids need some attention. You got to go cook and make lunch. You've got the TV blaring in the other room. And it's easy to just say, I got a little bit of time. I can go watch a show. I can go, talk to the wife for a little bit. I can go play with the kids. I got this thing from FedEx. Let me open up the box and play with this new toy I ordered from Amazon. It's so easy working remotely to become distracted. So the number one thing you first need to get out of the way is that your company needs to essentially assert that everybody who's working remotely needs to have their own individual space specifically for work at their location. So you can't just set up your laptop on your dining room table. Okay, that's no go. You should not do that. Okay, that is going to be a problem. You need to have your own space specifically designed where you block out those distractions and you can just come here to work. So it's like your office. If you go to your office, right, if you got this office space that you go to, you drive to, you go there to do work. That still needs to be the same concept, but you're just doing it at home, right? You still have a commute. You still have a separate area specifically for work that people know, like your kids know, your wife knows, everybody knows. While he or she is in there, don't bother them. They are working. Do not go in there, okay? And that's really, really important. That's important for you because you need to be able to stay focused and stay on task, because otherwise you're going to be less successful, and that can lead to a failure, right? What can easily happen with a company is that they say, well, we have too many people that are not getting enough work done because they're so distracted that this program is a failure, and we need to take away this remote work stuff. So it's really important that the employees, if you really like working from home, make sure you are not getting distracted, because you don't want to give the company an excuse to go back to being in person. So the second part of this, and more, now I'm finally actually approaching your question here, Center Negative, the communication, right? The communication situation between the individuals. So one of the hardest things to do is establish that communication, because you're so isolated, right? Everybody is just very, very isolated. And you never really think about the other people that you're working with because they're also isolated. And unless you specifically reach out and directly and try to talk to them, right? And the other part of this is, even if you have a chat channel, right? And we got a Slack channel up. So we still go and communicate with each other on the Slack channel, but you may have a question and that person is busy doing something else. You may not get an answer right away, right? It may take a while for them to even see your request, to even see your question. So how do you approach that? And I think chat is a good, it's a good starter, right? It's a good way to get some quick communication, to have something like Slack or Discord, or heck, honestly, Slack is just an IRC knockoff. But whatever, as long as you have some sort of chat going on with the company, that's a good start. But what I have been advancing as an idea, and I have communicated this, and I've even suggested this to certain businesses and companies, you need to have more of that office atmosphere virtually. What can you do for that? You can do things like setting up like community rooms for people to just drop into, and just virtually, right? Visually, camera, microphone, and just drop in and just kind of have it running in the background. And if so it's kind of like you're opening up the door, right, for somebody to come in and ask you questions, right? This is my office. I'm going to leave this on all the time. So I now, and this is something that I've pushed, and I now do, is I just leave my video chat is always open. So if somebody wants to come talk to me, they just come in and talk to me. They don't have to try to reach out for me. They don't have to wait for a response. And if I'm not online, they know that I'm busy, right? They know that I'm doing something and I'm not there. But as soon as I come back, I turn it back on and they can come talk to me. And this is very much like that whole scenario of go knock on somebody's door, go knock on your boss's door or your partner's door, and, ask them a question if you see that they're not busy. And that's kind of the atmosphere I think that we need to develop. We need to have community rooms where you can just drop in and say hello, see how everybody's doing, kind of that water cooler. If you have a water cooler room, right? You have a room called water cooler that's a virtual like conference room that you just go in, drop in, start chatting with people, start having a general conversation. Hey, I went and saw Captain Marvel the other day. I didn't, by the way, but you could have that conversation. Hey, I went and saw Captain Marvel. Anybody else go see it? Or hey, what do you guys think about the latest .NET Core 3.0 release that they're working on? Or have you tried out Visual Studio 2019? Right? Just having those conversations, having those discussions is something you need within the company. You need those discussions because if you don't, there is no camaraderie. There's no rapport with your fellow employees. So you have to bridge that gap by trying to take the virtual tools and kind of force them as an office, right? Just try to emulate the office environment, but do it virtually. And I think this is really hard for companies to do. I think this is hard for companies to kind of enforce this behavior because everybody just kind of gets into this mode when they're working from home. I go to my office, I do my thing, I stay focused, I'm done at the end of the day, I close the laptop. And that communication with other people is only happening when it's absolutely necessary. And that's a mode of communication that can kill a business, right? The lack of communication, lack of discussion, the things that are not happening because of that are just as detrimental as anything that could be said between two people. So it's really important that you establish that. Like I said, I like the idea of just like setting up a room, like call it water cooler or call it, you know, I don't know, call it general or whatever you want to call it, but just kind of like set up this conference room area where everybody can just go and chat and talk to each other, have as many meetings as possible. You know what's funny is in an office environment, everybody hates meetings, but in a virtual environment, everybody loves meetings. It's so weird. Like, I mean, maybe not everybody. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know, from when I talk to my fellow coworkers, it's like we're trying to jam a week's worth of discussion into that half hour or hour that we have to actually talk to each other. So, like, having more meetings, having this open environment is really, really critical to having a good workforce. So hopefully, Center Negative, I know that took me like, what, 20 minutes to answer your question, but I think that it was well worth going into. Okay, let's see, what do we got next? Cole City Like says, I am relatively new to programming, and I am fine reading the .NET Core documentation. Didn't I read that? Did you just ask that question twice? I'm relatively new to programming, and I find the .NET Core documentation overwhelming sometimes. What do you suggest for newbies to help them read it better with that better understanding? So, yeah, I definitely think, like I was showing you, try to go through the .NET. The documentation is pretty good. Also, YouTube, just doing YouTube, finding me or finding tutorials like this is really good. If you really feel up to it, if you really want to, I do believe in boot camps. I do think that they're really good. They definitely give you a leg up. If you can't do a boot camp, then continue to do like online courses and stuff. But if you can get into a boot camp, it really is. And a boot camp is really just a fancy word for trade school, right? Boot camps are basically software development trade schools, and that's really, really a great route to go. It may cost money, but ultimately, I think it's definitely well worth it. DC, thank you for answering your question. You're welcome. You're welcome, sir. S. Kumar says, sir, your MS Access video tutorial is awesome. Well, thank you. You are awesome for watching it. You are awesome for being here on this discussion right now and telling me that I'm awesome. So we're all awesome. That's awesome. DC says, everyone hit the like button. I agree. Wholeheartedly hit the like button. Make sure that you know what? Every time that somebody hits the like button, the fairy gets its wings. Why not? Do you know, okay, so Jell Jacobs asks, do you know how to make your MVC application Razor View a Owen? I need it to run on my Raspberry. Owen. How to make your MVC I don't know that that's necessarily the right format. Why do you need it to run on your Raspberry Pi? You can do that. You can load up .NET Core stuff on a Raspberry Pi, but I don't know why you would want a Razor application to run on a Raspberry Pi. That's where I'm kind of a little lost. So maybe you could help out there, Jill. Vipin Sayal. Hi, I want you start Python tutorial soon. You want me to do Python? You want me to teach Python? Oh, man. I have a love-hate relationship with Python. Mostly it loves me, I hate it. Python is one of those languages that is just... I think I saw, I might have even posted up on the Facebook page the thing about Python is the easiest language to learn, but if you put a space in the wrong spot, everything goes to hell. And I don't like the verbosity. This is one of the things about Python that is just the same as like Visual Basic. Is just the verbosity of the language. Python is not as bad as Visual Basic, obviously. I think my wife just texted me. Hold on here. I just want to make sure. Nope, it's just my pastor telling us reminding us that it is, oh yes, hey, this is good. I want to remind everybody, daylight savings, don't forget to push your clocks an hour forward. Public service announcement. Don't forget to push your clocks forward ahead by 1 hour. So, and it is spring forward, right? You move it ahead 1 hour, except if you're in the southern hemisphere, right? I guess that's how it works. I don't even know. You want me to start? Okay, so back to this. So you want me to start Python tutorial soon? I'll tell you what. I will think about it. I'm not going to give any guarantees about it. There's a lot of other languages. I mean, there's Java to do. There's JavaScript to do. There's just basics HTML and CSS. Python is a good one though. I mean, the fact that Python is is growing so fast does make me think that it might be good to do them. I just don't know. The problem is I really don't. I'm not a real big fan of Python. Like, I know I'm probably one of the few people that says that, though. I know a lot of people love Python, but it's just, I don't like the structure of how Python looks. It just looks goofy to me. It's hard for me to read. It's hard for me to follow and understand. One of the other big problems that I find with a lot of Python code is the fact that it gets really, really long. And so I'm kind of going to dig into this a little bit, but the code that I see for Python gets really, really long. You tend to have like one file that has lots and lots of stuff in it. And I think that to me is a really big problem. Now, that's more of a development style issue, right? It's not necessarily a problem with the language specifically, but the fact that so many developers write their code that way in Python makes me just kind of cringe at even the thought of teaching it. Because, I mean, maybe you could make the argument, well, you could then teach it the right way, right? But Python already kind of has this culture of doing it the right way, and doing it their way. They kind of have these rules of the way that you should do it. So for me to try to counter that might be asking for more hate on my channel than really we would want. And my other fear with that is if people hate it enough, then it might turn some people off of learning it. And I know this is kind of a rabbit hole. This is kind of silly. Like why would you not want to teach one of the most prolific languages out there? But it is very much a opinionated group of people in the Python realm, and I just kind of worry it's a bit of a third rail to go to. But I will think about it. I'm not totally against it. There is a good argument to say that I should do it because it is so popular. Okay, so S. Kumar says, sir, please make some user form videos on MS Access. Please, it's humble request. So please make some user form videos. I'll have to think about that. I think that might be something I could do. Vipin Sial says, I did your Access and C# series and learned a lot more. Good. Yeah, I think C# is probably the better of the series to learn. Just from an overall, if you're looking to start to learn how to get into the industry and what are some of the skills that you're going to need in order to have a successful time in the industry, watching the C# stuff is really, really good to do. DC says, do you plan on adding more tutorials to your channel? Yes, I do. I've always had the plan, even for this last, gosh, it's almost been a year now. I've always had the plan to continue to build and do the videos. So that's never something I don't want to do. I was a little concerned, honestly, when I took this job that I have, that I wouldn't be able to do those videos. But I talked to the CEO at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, no, we want you to do videos. We want you to keep going with the Programming Made Easy channel, because we want you guys, you guys who are watching right now, to possibly come and you know, learn at WazU. You know, if I can be a good spokesperson for WazU, then you know, however I do that, then they're open to do that. As long as I just don't take the WazU stuff, you know, I'm not taking the WazU curriculum and putting it online. So I can still do the videos. I do want to do the videos. As you guys can see, I just put out the Access videos. To be honest with you, they're more difficult to do than just the opinion-based videos or these little live streams. So they do take more time. They take a little bit more planning and thought, and I got to do the PowerPoint slides. And maybe that's a question I want to ask you guys, since you're all here. Do you like having the slides at the beginning of the videos? If you don't, if you want me to just jump right into the coding examples, I can do that. But the idea that I have behind those, you know, going through those slides in the intro is to give kind of the wider, bigger concept of how this thing fits in, and kind of give you a visual representation of what's about to be displayed in code. But I know some people are like, I don't want that visual stuff. Just show me the code. Just get into it. So I'm interested in your guys' opinion. What do you guys think? Should I continue to do those PowerPoint slides at the beginning of the videos to just kind of explain things, or should I just go like, in this video we're going to be talking about X, Y, Z, and then let's get started? Okay, I can do that if you guys want. Just let me know. Okay, so Cole City Like says, I accidentally turned on YouTube once your live video notification. Are you going to be doing this more often? I'm asking so I don't miss it. Yeah, I think I will. I think I will. This has been a pretty successful initial attempt at this, and I'm glad to see you guys on here. I'm really glad to have this interaction. I love the interaction. I love the questions you guys are asking. It's kind of what I do at work when I was doing, well, it was what I was doing at work, where you know, students would come on and ask me, and I'd just talk to them. Excellent. Okay, so S. Kumar says, sir, please make some user form code tutorial in MSX. It's a humble plus. Okay, so same thing. Cole City Like says, I'm glad I came across this live video. Now I know how to navigate the net core documentation. Thanks. You should do this more often. Awesome. Awesome. One problem. This whole stream was worth it. This whole stream has now been worth it because I solved someone's problem. That's it. That's all I'm here for. That's what makes me tick every day. That's what, seriously, this is what I get up out of bed for, is to make sure that you guys learn something. You know, my students learn something, you guys learn something. I love it. It really makes me so happy when people have been able to figure something else out that they wouldn't, you know. I have students that struggle with things for days, right? Days they struggle with something, and within, you know, 2 minutes I get them sorted out, and they're just like, you know, mind blown. And I love that. I love being able to open those doors for people. Dwayne Collusion says, identify the date. Okay, so you need to identify the date. So, okay, this goes back to Dwayne's initial question. So now I'm going to reread Dwayne's. And Access payroll, tracking promotion salary and demotion salary. I was able to use max function to identify promos, but need to know how to identify a date in the middle of the initial hiring date and the latest promotion date. Okay, so in the middle of initial hitting date. So are you trying to find are you trying to find the middle of two dates, right? So you could do like an average, like the AVG function, right? You could try to do the date average, or date diff. You could do you could take the max and then do a date diff by subtracting 3 or 3, you know, 3 like 4. I don't. You could, if you kind of need to know. So if you're looking for the middle date, right? You're looking for a middle date. You need to have a beginning and an end. So you know what the last date is. Do you know what the beginning date is? Is it the very, very first one? I doubt that. It sounds like that's probably not what you're looking for. In Access payroll, tracking promotion salary and demotion salary. So we use max function to identify promotions, but need to know how to identify a date in the middle of initial hiring date and latest promotion date. What kind of middle? Like, what are you need to find something? So, what is the criteria to find the middle? Are you literally talking about like I have this date and I have this date and I need the exact middle? Because if that's the case, then you can just figure out what the total amount of days between that is. So you just do like a date diff to find the difference between the two dates, and then you divide that in half, and that's the number. Then you just try to do, get a date based upon the latest date minus, get the max date minus whatever that halfway mark is. If that's what you're looking for, right? You're looking for the mean, then that's what you're gonna want to do. Is it mean or median? Oh my gosh, I always get those two things mixed up. But that's how I would find the middle. If I'm not on the right track, please go ahead and clarify for me on your question, because I am having a hard time. I'm kind of struggling trying to understand exactly what you're doing. A lot of that has to do with questions like this. It's hard for me to answer because I don't know your code, right? I don't know your table structure. I don't know what the function is that you're trying to perform specifically, or what the purpose is. Sometimes the context of the purpose really can help me out in this case, but at the same time, I don't want you giving away any sort of trade secrets. So, yeah. Kevin, why Estrada Justinano? I hope I'm terrible with foreign names. Hello, my name is Kevin. Where can I take certifications? Ooh, certifications. What kind of certifications? I need to know that. So, if you're looking for certifications for .NET, I'm gonna kind of do a little cop out here. Google it, but I'm gonna Google it for you. Okay. This is one of those things that I like to do. So let's just say that we want to do Microsoft certifications, right? So we'll do Microsoft C# certifications. Boom. Exam 7483. 7483. So you can schedule the exam. You could do it right there, right? If you are looking for Java certifications, you're going to need to go to Oracle. So there is Oracle. Where is it? Java certifications. There we go. JavaCertifications.org. There's a list of them. Yeah, you want to do the EEs. So these are your web component developers, right? So these are going to be more web developy stuff. So you're going to be like JSP pages and that sort of thing. JPA, so that's going to be more of your, so JPA developer. Oh. Why did it just expand? I didn't want it to just expand. So here's your junior associate stuff. So yeah, okay, so that's what they're doing. Is if you just scroll down here, you can see all of the list of certifications. Now, Java certifications are really good to do because, like I was telling you guys earlier on in the screen, in this live presentation, the Java is really kind of the hottest market right now in terms of numbers of jobs, and I think the money that's being paid for it. So getting your certification in Java is a really, really good route to go. I would highly encourage it if you're really interested in it. The junior associate is really kind of a good place to start. So you can go for your novice level and just you start kind of going from one to the next. So your SE Programmer 1, so you're going to want to do SE 8. Is that really all that they're on? Is SE 8? An SE 8 certification. Wow, okay. But yeah, you can just come here at javacertifications.org. They got this. But I think there is a better one, though. There's a better place to go. Here we go. Oracle certifications. Oh. That's not it. Where'd it go? That's not the one. Is it now Education Oracle certification? I was just visiting one of these pages just the other day, as a matter of fact. We were looking at getting certifications for our students that go through at WazU. Yeah, so yeah, this was it. So you can do your exam preparations, you can do your certifications here. So you just choose the product that you want to do, and you can go here to the Java software, and this is where you can start walking through the process of getting Java certifications. We here at WazU, we do give you a certification at the end that you've completed our program, and we do full stack, right? So we say that you are a full stack certified developer. Not that that necessarily plays to any particular certifications as far as .NET, C#, or like Node.js or anything like that. There's no certifications that way. It's just a certificate from us to an employer saying that you've completed it, much like if you went to a trade school, you would get a certificate of completion at that trade school. So what we do, but what we also have, and again, I'm not trying to plug, this is just kind of some insight perhaps into like these kind of trade schools, is we actually have an employment, a specific career development team, right? So they have a job placement team. So once you graduate, now you've got your certificate. Like we have a group of people that work with different business partners to get you hired, and that certificate is kind of the thing that says you completed it. You also leave with a project, right? You have that completed project as part of your certification. So there's a lot of different routes to go with certification. You got to be a bit more specific about what kind of certification you're looking for. But this is where you could go for the Microsoft stuff. You could just go, go straight to the Microsoft.com website and you get your certifications that way. If you're looking to get your Oracle Java certifications, that's another way you can go. So, all right. Hopefully, I have answered your question. Hi, Steve. Just tuned in. So Dennison Vincent. Hi, Steve. Just tuned in. Any recommendations on a good tutorial in ASP.NET web programming? I know HTML, CSS, but JavaScript and configuring a web server kicks my butt. Okay, so what is the back end? So what is the host that you're trying to run it on? Because here's the thing: if you're just doing a plain, well, you're trying to do ASP.NET web. Okay, so you're trying to do ASP.NET. If you're trying to do ASP.NET, I know some tutorials on programmingmadeeasy.com, but if you're not wanting to do that, again, I'm going to plug, we have, at WazU, we do have a C# ASP.NET pathway, so that's one route to go. You can also obviously go to YouTube and just look up, all sorts of stuff. That's a good place to go. Udemy is obviously one of those other things. Oh, ask me anything. There I am right there. You can go to Udemy is a pretty good one. Pluralsight is okay. Pluralsight is a little bit more expensive than Udemy. And here's the thing, like, these sites are fine, right? Udemy, the Free Code Academy, right? Free Code Academy. They have some pretty good tutorials on here as well. Where was it? Oh, Free Code Camp. That's right. I said Free Code Academy. Free Code Camp. They have some pretty good stuff here too. You're in luck because my brain just had a light bulb go off of it. There was something I had been looking up here. Thinkster.io. So I have been really, really, really impressed with, I got to show you guys this. There's another website. This is kind of tangential, but trust me, I'm going to get you there. So there is a website called StackBlitz.com. StackBlitz.com. And StackBlitz.com is an online editor. Now, it's not a .NET Core editor. This is for front end. Okay, so this is your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But this is a spectacular website for doing online IDE. So just like, here's an Angular TypeScript application, for example. This is beautiful. This is like Visual Studio Code in the browser, right? I can close this here. I don't need the live browser. But this is basically Visual Studio Code in a browser. This is awesome. This is amazing stuff here. And you can deploy it to your GitHub repository and stuff. Now, if you're going to build an application that is just Angular, React, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or jQuery can be on there, and you don't actually have any sort of like back-end API that you're working with, you can actually deploy this up to GitHub and then use GitHub to host it. GitHub has a way of actually hosting a page for you, which is awesome. So you can do stuff like that. It's really cool. But if you are looking to actually do like learning how to host, so the guys that wrote Stack Blitz also run Thinkster. And Thinkster is where you can also browse some courses. You can learn React, Vue, Angular, Docker, right? TypeScript, Redux, RxJS. RxJS is a really cool library. There's Ruby on Rails. There you go. Let's see, or just Rails? Is that just Rails front end? Yeah, JavaScript framework. Yeah. Django, Firebase, Ionic, full stack. Here's Node.js, right? So there's your Node.js right there. Node.js is one of the more popular ways to do hosting if you're just doing front end. So they've got that. There's the mean stack and deployment. So there's all sorts of really, really good stuff on here. There's a lot of free tutorials. There's some that do cost a little bit of money to get the pro access, but Thinkster is really, really good. I do like them. But then there is, of course, a free, I say free code accounting, is Free Code Camp, right? Free Code Camp, there we go. Free Code Camp has a lot of great free stuff to learn, to do it. It seems a little bit more, everybody just kind of posts up, it's kind of like blog oriented, and everybody just kind of posts up their thing. So if you're looking for like video tutorial stuff, this isn't going to be your bag. You're going to want to go to just like, you know, YouTube and go find people like me to go help you out with that kind of stuff. So hopefully I answered your question there, Dennison. If I didn't, please let me know. Bias. So center negative bias is supposed to be biased. Yeah, I think I got that. Okay. Dwayne Colson. I have a table with positions and the dates a person is promoted to this position. First record is the initial hiring date as staff. Second record is the date this person was promoted to a senior. Okay. So, I'm still trying to understand what is the, third record is the date this person was promoted back to staff. I want to be able to match these dates. I'm not up with dates that this person worked that are included in another table so that the right position is matched up with the right pay date. I'm trying to understand. I'm really. I have no doubt you're probably explaining it. You're really doing a good job of explaining it. I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head around this. I think it's one of those things that if I saw it, because I am a bit of a visual learner, if I saw it, I would probably be able to help you. Tell you what, Dwayne, why don't you reach out to me offline? And I don't do this for everybody, but if you reach out to me offline, let's set up some time that maybe I can kind of chat about this with you and maybe get a little bit better of an understanding of what the problem is, because I'm just not, it's the picture is just not totally clear for me based upon your description. Renell, actually yeah, so Renell Sumagang, Renell Sumagang. Hi Steve, just tuned in. Is there any way to use Access on the web platform? No. I'm just gonna leave it simple. No, there really isn't. There was a web version of Access in 2010 and then they also did some stuff for SharePoint. Very involved, and they dropped it. So it's not even really worth getting into. So really, the answer is no. It needs to be desktop oriented. If you're looking to do web platform stuff, I'm sorry to say you're going to have to learn some sort of web development. You're going to have to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's just the way it is. Now, one thing I will say, this is totally off point. Those of you who are not aware, but if you've learned C# and you know ASP.NET and .NET Core, you need to go check this out. Blazor.net. Blazor.net. So, there is a pretty large upheaval coming in the industry. And it has to do with something called WebAssembly. So, for the longest time, if you wanted to do any sort of interactivity on a website, you had to use JavaScript, right? It was the only language, the only programming language that worked within a browser. Now, there is something called WebAssembly, which is, we call it a compilation target, okay? So what this essentially means is that you can take a coding language, and if you can compile that language into some sort of machine language, okay, which is technically what you're doing with C#, right? Actually, C# gets interpreted into MSIL, and that is essentially then ran by the .NET runtime. But the thing here is that the .NET runtime is actually C-based, right? It's C and C. I think it's C and C++. I think there's parts of both in there. I'm not totally sure, but I know C++ is in there, but I think also C is in there. But it is running, like it is C, that language is essentially, it's being compiled and running bare metal essentially onto the platform. So here's what's interesting though. You can take a language like C#, you can write it into a platform like Razor Pages, right? Which is essentially one of the other ways that you can write a web page besides MVC. And what happens is WebAssembly is a way of taking one of those libraries like the runtime, like the C# runtime, and running it inside of your browser. So what I'm saying here is you can write C# code that runs in the browser. That is amazing. And that's becoming one of the, so this new WebAssembly compilation target is really, really important because now you can run basically any C++ library. You can compile that C++ library into something that will run under the web, that will target WebAssembly and run within the browser. So anything that is a C++ application can theoretically be run in the browser. Not totally, but there's some caveats to that. But by and large, you can run a C++ application in the browser now. That's big because there's a ton of platforms that use C++ as the underlying mechanism, right? So .NET Core is using C++ as the underlying mechanism to run things, which means, and they went ahead and built a runtime, a .NET Core, or a .NET runtime. It's actually Mono. It's part of the Mono package that actually runs, targets WebAssembly, and runs in the browser. So now they have been able to take this, and Blazor is a project that Microsoft has where they are taking C# code mixed in with some HTML and CSS, but not JavaScript. You can do some interop with JavaScript, but it's not, basically your C# stuff will work inside of the browser now. And that is huge. Like that is, now Java has that potential. Kotlin has that potential. Go has that potential. So Golang has that potential. Python has that potential. Like anything that its underlying runtime is C++ based could theoretically be ran within the browser now. That's huge, right? Like that's absolutely amazing. So Blazor.net is Microsoft's product that they're working on making that happen. And so you guys should go definitely check it out. It is absolutely awesome. Okay, so where am I at here? The third record, blah, blah, blah. Okay, just saw you have a video introduction to JavaScript listed. I will preview it. Oh, yeah, so, Denison, that is, yeah, so that was like, just as kind of a heads up, that was back when I first started working at Coder Camps. That was my very first, presentation that I did at Coder Camps up in Seattle, Washington. Actually, it was Redmond, Washington, technically, but that was kind of more of an introductory that was trying to fit several hours worth of learning material into like 1 hour. I would love to do a JavaScript course here. I think that that's something I will probably do. is do a basics HTML, CSS, and Java course. That's kind of been on my radar to do for a while, simply because I think it's one of the most important areas that you could learn. If you're gonna be a web developer, you have to learn those things. So, okay. Center Native Steve, thanks very much for answering both my questions. Your honest insights into emulating office banter virtually, I think, are an extremely important and overlooked aspect of telecommuting. Absolutely. I think it is one of the most, like, you have to think, businesses are not looking at telecommuting from a communication standpoint. They're not looking at it from a inter-office standpoint or perspective, or they're looking at it as a cost reducing, and also, like, there's a ton of benefits to going to an online only or a remote office system. Number one, the net is cast much wider if the job openings are virtual, right? Because if I was a company, say, based out of Phoenix, and I was looking to hire some talent, that means the number of people that I can look to hire is just located within my small little region, right? I can only hire those people in the Phoenix area. If I am expecting them to come to work every day and work at a desk every day, I can only hire them within that certain area. And so the number of people, the number of applicants is very, very small. Not only that, but it's not even like I have that many people. I can only hire the people that are not currently working, right? It's not even that I'm narrowing down to just that region, but I'm narrowing down to that region, and only those people in that small window time frame are even available to go to work, right? Or looking for work. And I probably even have to narrow it down even more according to the salary that they're going to be asking for. And Phoenix is really one of the less expensive areas to live comparatively to other cities. Like, I mean, I just came from Redmond, Washington. The prices there in Seattle are absolutely outrageous. The cost of living in that area is second only to San Francisco, I think. And San Francisco is just absolutely, the cost of living there. So if you run a business in San Francisco or Seattle, you're having to pay outrageous salaries, but that's because everybody has to ask that just to live there. One of the benefits of saying that you are casting a net open to, I'm willing to hire outside, in some other region, is the fact that you can probably find somebody for a lot cheaper because they live in, I live in Bend, Oregon now. The cost of living here is a little bit higher than a lot of rural areas, but if I was like just 20 minutes north of here and I lived in Redmond, the cost of living up there is like half of what it is here. I still can do remote work if I live in Redmond, Oregon, really, really cheaply. So my asking price is going to be lower because of where I live to work for a company, right? So that means the company is reducing cost because they can hire people cheaper at regions of the country that the cost of living is lower, right? So their asking salary can be lower. So you can hire good talent that's not necessarily really right there, and you can get it for cheaper because you're doing this. So from a business perspective, it makes a total amount of sense. But there is that caveat. There's that real serious problem, right? Of how do we engage those people that work remotely? How do we keep them engaged? How do we get them talking? How do we get them to communicate in that office environment? And the answer is you have to be proactive about it. You've got to be like, we're having meetings, you guys are all here, and we're going to just BS. Like, have a meeting, like seriously, have a meeting with no agenda. Have it. Like, we're not here to talk about anything. What'd you guys do last week? Did you guys do anything fun? Did you guys go skiing? Did you guys go mountain biking? Did you guys go bowling? Whatever. Just have that conversation. It's so important for people to do that. All right. Okay. Cole City Like, another question. I have a dilemma on what to learn next between SQL and Angular. I'm trying to be a .NET Stack developer. Go learn Angular. go learn Angular. Okay. Once you've got your head wrapped around Angular, you can say you're a full stack developer. Okay, and that opens up a lot of doors. You don't necessarily need to know, although it's good to know SQL. It's really, really good to know SQL. SQL is really easy. You know, honestly, maybe I should switch that up. Learn the basics of SQL. You don't need to know much more than how to do queries. Like you need to know how to like maybe create a database, but you don't need to become a DBA, right? You don't need to be, if you're a developer, if you're going to be a developer, you don't need to be a DBA. You just need to know how to write queries. You need to know how to work with ORMs, like Entity Framework is .NET's ORM. But you need to know like the basics, like how do I query a database? How do I insert data? How do I update data? How do I delete data? But really just those basics, just knowing how to do that is probably important. It's very easy to go through. You could probably learn that in like a week. But Angular, you need to get to the point where you know Angular. Angular is going to open up a lot more doors than knowing SQL. So that would be my advice for you. Center negative. According to TIOBE for March 2019, Python is the third most popular programming language, and it's on an uptrend. Yeah, absolutely. Like Stack Overflow had it 4th as of last year. So absolutely, Python is growing. It is still not my favorite language. It's just, it probably is not going to be. But yeah, I mean, there's a good argument to be made there. I just think that JavaScript would be a more important language for me to teach on the channel than Python at this point, but that doesn't mean that I won't do Python. I kind of want to see where it levels out. I still remember like Ruby. Ruby was the precursor to Python. It was, you know, taken off on a huge trajectory and then just leveled off and then died. I'm curious to see if Python is the next language that does that. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I kind of want to see where it goes from here. Shimon Wasner. Thanks for your Access videos. I love the way you teach. I learned a lot from it. I'm now into web development. I would love a video on SQL versus NoSQL comparison. Ooh, I respect you. Keep your good work. Keep up your good work. That is a good idea, SQL versus NoSQL. I might have to think about that. I actually talk about this all the time at school. SQL is my preference. NoSQL has its purposes, but SQL I think is... SQL is more structured, and I think because of that structure, it's a better place to go. NoSQL has basically no structure. It's like you just drop whatever data in you want. You can just write up a document, throw some JSON in it, and boom, you're done, right? And you can put objects inside of objects or arrays and stuff like that. It's kind of just like the nice thing about NoSQL and the document DB stuff is that you can just write JSON, and if you are a pure JavaScript developer, it's like, you know, home. It just makes total sense to you doing like a MongoDB database. The problem is it can get very easy to get off track because it's schemaless, right? You have no guardrails, right? You can get totally out of whack with your data. There's no constraints to how your data is managed, and therefore you can leave a lot of pieces and bits. You have a lot of duplicate pieces. You have a lot of abandoned things or orphaned things. You can end up just kind of bloating it if you're not careful. Whereas with SQL, it's a little harder to do that. You can still do some of those things, right? You can still have orphaned records and that sort of thing. But the bottom line is you can put a ton of constraints on it, and I think mentally, like just how to conceptualize things, I think SQL is just a little bit better to do. Also the interface, like if you're doing honestly, I don't really like the JavaScript shell type of way of getting at the data for a document database. I just don't like it. Having all these special operators that you have to throw in there that are all unique to the database you're working with Just doesn't make sense. SQL is like a standard way. Like, this is it. This is how you do it. And you can do it for Oracle. If you learn it for Oracle, you've basically learned it for MySQL. You've learned it for Access. You've learned it for MySQL or for SQL Server. Like, you've got it all down, right? You learn one language, you've got them all. But with like the JavaScript stuff, it's real easy to get convoluted. But there is a place for it, right? I do think if you are a pure JavaScript developer, it makes a lot of sense to use something like a NoSQL database. Nicolas says, awesome live stream, Steve. Cheers, mate. Awesome. Thank you very much. Cheers, mate. You must be from, you're either from England or you're from Australia, because only those guys say cheers, mate. Shimon Wasner. And Node.js Express versus ASP.NET C#. Now, this is a good one. For me, ASP.NET C# all the way. Totally. As a matter of fact, .NET Core has been proven to be faster than Node.js at this point. But just the way that you conceptualize things and the way that you organize an application in Node.js versus ASP.NET, leaps and bounds better. Leaps and bounds better. It's kind of, so in my last video when I was talking about the differences between Angular and React, kind of hit on some of this stuff. So Node.js with Express is just like a bunch of functions, right? It's functions within functions within functions within functions within functions. Whereas with C# and ASP.NET Core, it's classes, right? It's an organizational group. It's the way that your brain kind of sculpts things and organizes things and manages things in a class, in a world of classes and data types. It's just easier to figure out in my brain that this goes here for that purpose. This is over here is for that purpose. And, you know, if you ever need that interchangeability, right, you need to swap one piece of code out with another. It's, you know, it's a no-brainer. That being said, like, Node.js and Express is perfectly good at doing what it does, right? It's, you can learn JavaScript. I think that's really the main benefit. If you only want to know one language, if you only want to know JavaScript and you don't want to have to learn another paradigm, you don't want to have to learn about data types, you don't want to have to learn about interfaces and solid principles and, you know, all of those kind of things. If you don't want to learn that extra stuff, you can just learn JavaScript, stick with Node and Express, and you'll be fine. Like, everything that you do, everything that you learned when you built HTML, CSS, and JavaScript applications on the front end, you can take those same concepts and apply them to Node.js. That's the benefit of it. But overall, from like a management of the architecture space, there's a reason why enterprises typically don't go Node. Okay, enterprises typically go with .NET or go Java. Okay, they might do Python too, but Django is I would be interested to see what the comparison is between Django, which is the Python .NET stuff, or the Python network backend stuff, the Python web server stuff. There we go, web hosting framework. I'd be curious to see what the numbers are of Django versus ASP.NET, or Django versus Spring, which is Java's MVC stuff. I'd be curious to see what those numbers are, because I think those are much more telling. Python is great because it's much more like much more statistical, not as much web. So I think that's where you're gonna get it. Anyway, okay, moving on. Center Negative says, if you gain any insights from your chat with Dwayne about date calculations and manipulation in Access, please consider making a video about it. That's a good idea. I might do that. Center Negative also says, I remember Ruby being a huge deal too, flash in the pan. Yeah. Ironically, actually, it was you. We still teach it. We still teach Ruby. But yeah, it was kind of one of those things that a sharp trajectory up and then just, you know, it just kind of leveled out. Now it's, what is it, like 4% of the market share? It's really, really low. It's not very big. I don't know. I don't think Python's on the same trajectory. I just want to see more about what ends up coming from it, right? One of the things that kind of scares me about Python is the fact that it's so opinion-based about how to use it. And there's a lot of that also in Java and C#, but it just seems like it's more of a community community opinion. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I just want to see where it goes. I really do. Senator Negative also says, I'm only interested in Python myself peripherally because I use a 3D modeling program called Blender. Oh yeah, I use Blender all the time too. Well, I used to. I shouldn't say I use it now. I used to. It's built on. I'm not entirely aware of its popularity in the industry otherwise. Yeah, Blender's cool. Like, I loved learning Blender. Unfortunately, Blender is not the #1 3D rendering software, right? Or 3D building software. I think 3D Max Studio probably is. I think that's probably the #1 tool for a lot of people. But Blender is a really great start. I loved tinkering around with Blender and just doing all the polygon stuff. Okay, I'm probably gonna have to cut it here. I got 2 more questions. Center Negative says, I think some folk here and subbed to you just like your teaching method, and so they want you to teach them all sorts of other things. But if you're not passionate about it, that's also important. Yeah, I agree, man. There is kind of like, what am I passionate about teaching? Because you have to think about it in terms of how much in-depth I try to get into with the stuff. If I just covered the basics of something and I just kind of walked through it and didn't explain what's going on behind the scenes, it probably wouldn't be as informative. So if I just kind of go and do Python just for the sake of doing Python, I might not be as in-depth. But again, there's a really good argument to be made that it should be done. I mean, it's like you said, the 3rd most popular language that's out there right now. Stan S says, you rock. Thank you, Stan. You rock too. You rock too for being on here. And we've gone on for 1 hour and 46 minutes now at this point. So it's been on for a long time. I really appreciate everybody who contributed and asked me questions. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there. And I will probably do another one of these. I really do think that it's something I should do regularly and just kind of start getting your guys' questions. And thank you so much for being here, guys. I really appreciate your support. I love all the thumbs up you guys give, all the views that you guys have for my videos. I hope to start doing some more of them again and start bringing some of this content to you. I loved this format. Tell me what you guys think of this format. I hope I'm not going to repeat that, but that's pretty funny for streams. Anyway, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this format. I will definitely consider doing it again. I think it is something I'd like to do more often. It's kind of easy for me to do, to just tackle your guys' questions. So hopefully you guys take care. I can't wait to see you guys in another one of these. Keep watching the video stream, keep learning, and keep going about and doing what you guys do. You guys are awesome. So thanks for watching, guys. All right, take care.